trying to do some pre-recorded lectures for you guys. We're going to be first discussing the regulation of blood calcium. That's the plan. So far we've gone through quite a bit of the skeletal system, and we've learned what bones are comprised of, their microscopic anatomy, a lot of the physiology of bone growth and bone regulation. But what we really want to get into here in this particular section is how bones, well, where do we store calcium? Right? We store them in our bones. So we got this storage place for all of this calcium, and we need access to this calcium anytime that we need it. And so bones are constantly being remodeled. They're getting broken down, they're getting built back up again, getting broken down by the osteoclasts that are secreting the hydrochloric acid. They're getting built back up again by osteoblasts as they are depositing new calcium phosphate. And what this particular portion of the lecture is going to focus on is how do we regulate that blood calcium? Because calcium is so critical in so many different functions, from everything from exocytosis, heart function, both the heart rate, we're going to learn more about that in anatomy and physiology too, and in the contraction and relaxation of muscles, the heart muscle, but also smooth muscles and skeletal muscles. They all depend on calcium for their function. Calcium is a very critical ion of the human body. So how do we regulate blood calcium levels? Okay, we do it by stealing calcium from the bones when we need it and storing calcium away when we don't need it. Air conditioning just came on. I hope it's not too loud. Alright, so let's figure out how we're going to start this whole entire process. And what we're going to do first and foremost is we are going to think about what's going to happen when we have low blood calcium. So we're going to say a patient walks through the door. They have a decrease in the amount of blood calcium. This is called hypo for low, calcemia. Okay, calcium, emia, in the blood. So this is low calcium in the blood. And what does this patient, I guess I should ask, what's the body trying to do, right? What do we know about homeostasis? The second that blood calcium levels start to drop, what's the body going to try to do? Bring them back up again. This is this entire idea of homeostasis and negative feedback loops. So what do we know the very end of this story is going to be? We know that at the end of this story, we're going to be bringing blood calcium back up again in order to try to fix the original issue. Compensatory responses. How does the body do this? How does the body do this? Well, there is a gland in the human body called the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland is detecting calcium all the time. In addition, we have another gland in the human body called the parathyroid gland. Para, surrounding. There are 4 little nodules on the back of the thyroid gland that are called the parathyroid, and they are also monitoring calcium all the time. So let's go ahead and write that bit of information down. The thyroid and the parathyroid. The thyroid is constantly trying to detect increased or elevated levels of calcium. So we're going to say stimulus. Okay, the stimulus for the thyroid, and there are these particular cells of the thyroid called C cells. We'll learn more about them in AMP2, but they are detecting an increase in blood calcium levels. So increases in the concentration of calcium in the ECF. And I know that's going to be really small, and I apologize. I kind of ran out of room on my first go here. The parathyroid, on the other hand, is trying to detect a decrease in blood calcium levels. So the stimulus that is going to activate the parathyroid cells, they're called chief cells, stimulus that's going to be activating these chief cells is a decrease in the calcium concentration in the ECF. So here we go. In this particular scenario up here, we have a decrease in blood calcium levels. We have hypocalcemia. So which of these two organs is going to be detecting the hypocalcemia? The answer is the parathyroid gland. Okay, the parathyroid gland is going to not only detect it, but it's going to be stimulated by this decrease in blood calcium levels to secrete a hormone. Okay, so this is going to activate the parathyroid gland, and that parathyroid gland is going to be secreting, increase the concentration of a particular hormone called the parathyroid hormone, known as PTH, and that gets secreted into the bloodstream. Okay, it goes out into that ECF. From there, the parathyroid hormone is going to circulate through the entire body. And the parathyroid gland itself has quite a few, the parathyroid gland, no, the parathyroid hormone is going to go out to the rest of the body. And it has quite a few functions in and of itself that we're going to write down in just a second. Okay? Parathyroid hormone itself is going to go down and talk to bones. It's going to go talk to the kidneys. And it's going to communicate with these two particular organs to try to increase blood calcium levels, right? So let's look at how PTH is going to act on, let's start with bones. So PTH gets to the bones. What do we know about the bones, by the way? In order for any chemical to act in the human body, that organ, the target organ, must also have receptors for it. Right? So here in the bones, we're going to have receptors for PTH. And what's going to happen now? Well, those bones are going to start to be broken down. Right? We want to release calcium into the blood, so we need to steal it from the bones. Which bone cell do we know breaks bones down? Osteoclasts. And that's what we have going on down here, is that PTH is going to start to activate osteoclasts. Those osteoclasts are going to secrete hydrochloric acid, so it increases that hydrochloric acid production. And that starts to release calcium from the bone. Okay? It's going to release all this calcium from the bone, and that's going to end up going into the bloodstream. This is the breakdown of bone. This is called resorption. So this is going to increase bone resorption. This is not reabsorption. This is resorption. This is the breakdown of bone. And that is going to be increasing the amount of calcium found in the ECF. And what I want you guys to see is that's the opposite of the original stimulus, and that's what we're after. Second thing that PTH does. Okay, PTH also goes down and it talks to the kidneys. And in the kidneys it has a number of functions. The first function it's going to have in the kidneys is it's going to decrease the amount of calcium that gets excreted. Let's stop peeing out calcium. If we want to increase the amount of calcium in the body, we need to make sure that we stop getting rid of it. So the first thing that PTH is going to do in the kidneys is it's going to talk to the kidney filtering system. We'll learn more about this loop of Henle, well, the nephron, at a later date. But it's going to decrease the amount of calcium excretion, which means leaving the body. Excretion. Man, apparently I don't know how to spell. That's okay. We already knew that about me. Okay? Decreases the amount of calcium that is lost. The second thing it's going to do, and actually let's rewrite that to something that will make it more obvious that calcium is going to start to build up inside the bloodstream. Let's say that this increases calcium retention. So we retain more calcium in the blood. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to activate another hormone, a hormone that is synthesized in the kidneys. And we're going to learn about the synthesis of it in just a minute. But this is vitamin D3. Okay? So the activated form of vitamin D3 comes after the stimulation of the kidneys by PTH. So when you're asking yourself questions, make sure you're asking yourselves, what activates vitamin D3? The answer is PTH. What organ is vitamin D3 activated in? Kidneys. What's the function of vitamin D3? What do we know this entire system is trying to do? What was the stimulus? The decrease in blood calcium levels. Therefore, what is vitamin D3 going to do? It's going to try to bring blood calcium levels back up. How can it do that? Well, it turns out that vitamin D3 acts on the bones. Okay? And it works in a synergistic mechanism on bones to activate osteoclasts. So the two of these together, both PTH and vitamin D3 together, really has a huge impact on our bones. More so than just PTH alone. Does that make sense? Vitamin D3 also acts on the kidneys itself. So vitamin D3, even though it's secreted by the kidneys, also acts on the kidneys. What does that tell us? The kidneys have receptors for vitamin D3, and it's going to try to do everything it can to increase calcium retention. Last but not least, put this in red. This is an important little aspect of vitamin D3. Okay, vitamin D3 is also going to go and talk to the small intestines. And in the presence of vitamin D3, the small intestines increases its absorption of, what are we after? Calcium. Where do we get that calcium from? Our diet. So when we need to get more calcium out of the food that we're eating, what hormone is critical in that function? Vitamin D3. It's not just vitamin D3, it has to be activated. Okay? It must be the active form of vitamin D3. And in essence, this is what we're after. Number one, patient has hypokalemia. It doesn't even have to be hypokalemia, by the way. It can just be any old decrease in blood calcium levels, which your body going to try to do, fix the problem. That's going to activate the parathyroid gland because the parathyroid gland detects that change in calcium, that decrease in calcium, and then the parathyroid gland secretes parathyroid hormone. Into the bloodstream, blood goes everywhere. Locations the PTH is going to go, bones and kidneys. In the bones, the PTH is going to activate our osteoclasts. That's going to start to cause bone resorption to increase the amount of calcium that is in our bloodstream. PTH also talks to our kidneys. This is going to retain more calcium. And we can actually draw an arrow, right, from here if we wanted to, because as we retain more calcium, the whole idea is to increase the amount of calcium in our blood. Vitamin D3 does the same thing. So now the PTH comes down to the kidneys, it activates vitamin D3, and vitamin D3 acts back on the kidneys to help with calcium retention. It acts back on the bones to increase osteoclast activity, bone resorption, increases the amount of calcium in the blood, and last but not least, it acts on the small intestines to increase absorption of calcium from our diet. Take a break. Take a breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Because we're not done yet. You know the way that I like to teach. The way I like to teach is all about breaking stuff. Okay, we want to think about what's going to happen in a patient. We don't want to just learn something and forget it. Let's think about breaking something. Okay, what happens if the patient has a hypoactive parathyroid gland? What if the parathyroid glands are broken? No PTH. How's that going to go? That patient's going to always present with hypokalemia because their body can't fix the problem. What if somebody has kidney damage that affects vitamin D3 secretion? That's a big deal. What if a young child is born with kidney failure and their kidneys aren't working properly? What's still working in that patient? The parathyroid gland. What's still working? The parathyroid gland. Therefore, that kid has poorly activating vitamin D3 and active PTH. Tell me how that's going to go. That kid's going to have hypokalemia. And when that happens, the parathyroid gland, well, it can detect it, right? So it starts secreting PTH. And what's that going to be doing to that kid's bone? It's breaking that bone down. What's the function of vitamin D3? To get calcium from our diet. So here we are breaking calcium away from our bones, our storage of calcium. But we're not getting any more calcium into our body. And the body just keeps on breaking bone down because we can't bring calcium back into the body. Okay, this is a pretty severe disorder called rickets. You guys can look rickets up online. How are you going to fix a patient with rickets? Give them vitamin D3. Once you give them vitamin D3, the active form of vitamin D3, now we got a fixer. Now we're going to be increasing the amount of calcium that is absorbed from our diet. PTH continues to function properly, and that's exactly what you're going to do to a kidney failure patient whose areas of the kidneys that are affected also secrete vitamin D3. You're going to give them a vitamin D3 supplement. Please make sure you look through your presentation, your PowerPoint presentation. Please make sure you understand this aspect of it. Okay? And this is a decrease in blood calcium levels. So now let's start to think about the opposite. Great to think about hypocalcemia, but we should also think about hypercalcemia. And it, again, doesn't have to be hypercalcemia. It could just be somebody that has a boost in calcium in their body. It doesn't matter. We just use hypercalcemia in our example because it makes things a little bit easier to think about things at the extreme levels. So what if there's an increase in blood calcium? Which organ did I just erase? Detects increases in blood calcium? The thyroid gland. Okay, and the thyroid gland, more specifically, something called the C cell. This cell right here is going to, it's also known as the parafollicular cell. You guys will learn more about that later. This guy here is going to start to secrete calcitonin. Calcitonin. Okay, what hormone is secreted from the thyroid gland with a stimulus of an increase in blood calcium? The answer is calcitonin. What do we know the body's going to be trying to do to fix this problem? If there's an increase in blood calcium levels, the body's going to be doing everything it can to decrease blood calcium levels. How can we do that? Calcitonin can act on the bones. And at the level of the bones, how can we decrease the amount of calcium in the blood? Let's make more bone. Let's inhibit osteoclast function. And when we inhibit osteoclast function, we stop breaking bone down, and that allows the osteoblasts to do their job. And the osteoblast starts to pull calcium out of the blood, and it starts to make more bone. And when we do this, what's that going to start to do to the amount of calcium out here? Decreases the amount of calcium in the blood. What else can calcitonin act on? Hopefully you guys are starting to go, kidneys. Because kidneys are a way of either retaining or getting rid of excess material in our body. Okay, kidneys are pretty much the only way. So our kidneys here are going to do what? If calcitonin's in the system, do we want to get rid of more calcium or do we want to retain more calcium? You got it, right? We're going to excrete more calcium. So this is going to increase the excretion of calcium. Therefore, we pee that calcium out, and as you pee that calcium out, we get rid of that calcium from the bloodstream. What is not impacted? Small intestines, because calcitonin doesn't have anything to do with vitamin D3. But vitamin D3 is not going to be active right now because we have hypercalcemia, not hypo. Thanks, Otter. My dog. He's protective. I hope this all makes sense. I hope this is all very helpful. Promise you will be tested on this. You will have to know the flowcharts for this. Fun dogs. Alright, humankind, be bold.